Great, and then we'll get started. Okay, so today what we're planning on going through is what's new and what's next. So some recent capabilities that we have gone live with and made available, and some things that we have planned in the future, some upcoming capabilities in the platform. A couple of us will be speaking today. So this is Mark DiGirolamo. I'm the co-founder, one of the co-founders and chief customer officer. And really spent a lot of my time out in the field with customers, and then also working with Kim, who is the other host here today. Her title is Chief Delivery Officer, but she really wears multiple hats. She is responsible for delivery, but she's also responsible for product and roadmap. So it'll be a lot of fun when we get into her slides, and she'll go over some of the cool new stuff that we have and that we're implementing soon. But to dive right into it, I will cover Shibumi Connect and kind of kick us off in the webinar today. Before I get into that, though, I just wanted to take 30 seconds to expose you to this and just remind you and show how the Shibumi platform and how our offerings are architected. And this is pretty important because it's how we go to market and how we quickly go to market and implement for our customers. So what I'll be covering is Shibumi Connect. That's what you see over on the right there. And what Kim will be covering is platform capability. But we use this platform capability to produce modules and apps, and that's what you actually use. Our customers and partners are using apps and modules as they're using their solutions. We often use the Lego analogy when we talk about this. So if you think of the Shibumi platform slice of the pie at the bottom is our big box of Lego pieces that Kim and team are creating for us. We then can snap those together into modules and then into apps to quickly have business capabilities and solutions that are really hitting on the customer challenges and needs for us. And it allows us to be really agile with how we can put those pieces together to really deliver capabilities that our customers need. One question that we get quite often when we look at this slide is, yeah, I understand apps. That's what I'm using every day. I understand the platform, but what are modules? And that's that next slide. So if we're looking at that list of modules that we make available, these are kind of the common elements that make up an app within Shibumi. So, I'm doing a cost transformation program and I need idea intake and scenario management and resource management and governance. Okay, we'll take those modules and we'll use those to configure the app that you will use. And then potentially, there's a next version of Shibumi 6 months later that starts to incorporate, benefit realization. So it allows us a kind of a nice way and a bit of a menu around how we're going to configure and implement the apps once we start working with our customers. So with that, let's talk a little bit about Shibumi Connect, and then I'll pass it off to Kim. So Shibumi Connect, this is relatively new for us. Towards the end of last year, we kind of went live with it. And really what it is our integration platform behind the scenes within the platform. The really big headline here is there's over 1,447 to be exact, integrations that we have available in Shibumi Connect. And these are really everything from Oracle, SAP, Azure DevOps, Jira, you name it. There's a lot in there. And what this enables us to do is really quickly, be able to hear a requirement or request from one of our customers around integration, get that configured and set up pretty quickly, and then move on to the next. The one thing to note here too is sometimes we're asked for a integration that isn't one of those 1,447. But just keep in mind, if it has an API Shibumi Connect can integrate with it. So, we've been asked some homegrown solutions, for instance. As long as that's an API, that's fine by us. We can integrate to it. Next slide. So what we often talk about with integrations is not only, I want to integrate, Shibumi with Jira, but how is that integration going to work as an opportunity or as an initiative flows through a typical governance process that is enforced in Shibumi. And so we often identify different integrations as an initiative goes through its life cycle. So for instance, when it's an idea, well, maybe there's an ideation system that you already use at your company that feeds Shibumi ideas, that kicks off this whole process. Maybe there's some financial analysis applications out there that maybe create a baseline for a business case that we would define within Shibumi. And then, we can add to that to define how we want to improve that over time. When we're in execution, that's a very common spot to integrate. So, we want to integrate to MS Project or Asana or one of these applications to manage a set of tasks as we're in the execution phase. And then finally, when we're in benefit realization, maybe we want to connect to a financial reporting system like Oracle or SAP to validate, that our expectations of performance are in fact happening in the real world. And then all along the way, we often integrate to things like BI. So, Power BI, Tableau, those types of applications. If we jump to the next, so does the app offer survey platform similarly to online survey tools? Not typically. Sorry, I'm answering a question, Ken. Does it offer a survey platform similar to online survey tools is the question. No, we don't usually get involved with surveys within the application. And I think if you're asking kind of, submitting a survey to a big group of people and getting responses to that survey and then performing some analysis on it, that's not typically what we do. Usually when we're submitting or when we're making available a form to a large group of people, it's typically something like an intake form where they can submit ideas into the system. And then it would start to go through that governance life cycle that we were looking at. Okay, so integration. Last thing, we're on the topic of integration. We definitely integrate to online survey tools. So if you're already using one, that can be a pretty straightforward integration. So just a couple examples that I wanted to run through here for some of our typical integrations that we have available. And the first one I wanted to highlight was Jira. But keep in mind, this doesn't have to be Jira. It could be any kind of work management system. But the idea behind it, the pattern that we're looking at here is Shibumi is really managing the benefits that you expect to receive through executing on a set of initiatives. But in order to receive those benefits, quite often there's work that has to get done. We can't improve kind of employee efficiency until we deliver a new solution, a new app for them that makes it easier for them to do their job. So until we do the work involved in implementing the app, we don't get the benefit that we expected. But often that work is managed in something like Jira or Azure DevOps or Asana. And so what we want to do is define a dependency between the release or the milestone or the sprint inside something like Jira to the benefit in Shibumi. And then that allows us, as plans change in those work management systems or agile management systems, that can impact the benefit realization that's being tracked within Jira. And if it slips, we now know that that benefit isn't going to be delivered in the time that we thought we would. And we can visualize and understand that and communicate that up to the stakeholders, and so everybody understands the true business impact on moving and shifting timelines within a project plan. Very common pattern, we see it time and time again. The next pattern we wanted to highlight was, again, staying on this theme of work management, something like an MS project. And the idea here is, as an initiative flows through a life cycle, we define, we capture the idea, we define a business case, we execute, and then we realize benefit. The system that owns that initiative may change as it goes through its life cycle. Shibumi typically owns idea and business case. That's where you're defining the expectations around benefit and cost. But let's say we approved it, we invested in this initiative, and we move it into execution. And in your company, everything is an MS project. That's how you manage your projects, and you don't want to force all the employees to change and move into another system like Shibumi. And so now the system of record changes ownership, and now MS Project owns this initiative or project in their terminology. And we're just subscribing to certain data changes. So maybe there's a set of key milestones that we care about, and that's the only thing that is finding its way back into Shibumi. And then once we're done through execution, we want to verify and validate the benefit. Are we getting what we thought we would by doing all that great work? And so then it comes back into Shibumi, and we do the benefit realization piece. Another very common pattern we see time and time again, just a couple examples that we wanted to highlight for you. So one last thing, I always try to skip this for some reason, but this is awesome. So right now, Shibumi Connect requires some involvement from Shibumi, and really it's around configuring it, that last mile of configuring it to your solution. So with Jira, that last little bit of configuration that has to happen primarily around mapping. An initiative in Shibumi equals a project inside Jira type of thing. And that requires our involvement currently. What we plan to do, though, in the future is to make this completely self-service. So you won't need our involvement at all anywhere related to integrations. You can flip through a library of 1,447 integrations and pick one, click setup. It'll step you through a bit of a mapping exercise that you can do all on your own. And then the integration is live and running without having to get us involved. So that's a bit of the future of Shibumi Connect. So now with that, I will pass it off to Kim.
Thank you, Mark. Yes, so I'll pick up from there and give you a brief overview of some of the things that we've introduced in the last couple of quarters. And then I'll give you a live demo of them in action. And then we'll finish out the session with kind of what's queued up next in the next few months. So starting with the back, the rear view. First of all, I should say that we have certainly introduced more enhancements than what are listed on this slide. I've listed the ones that I think are especially exciting to share with you. So in Q4, we introduced dynamic layouts, multi-factor authentication in the mobile app. I've got a couple slides to go through on those. What I don't have a slide for, but that I did want to mention in case it was one that had slipped by your attention, is the ability to set the export setting. This was something that some of our very security conscious clients requested, is they wanted to be able to turn off export within their enterprise. So any place on any list or view where you were able to export previously, if the enterprise prohibits it, that's no longer available. So it's a nice security setting if it's one that your security team is anxious about. Q1, we introduced page level filters. A few different options there. We had some page level filters prior to these, but now we have the date range, work items, and metric data sets. The ability to edit a row of a table. We've introduced the board section, and I have slides on to show you for each of those. The one I don't have a slide for is the business rule enhancement. And this definitely gets down into that Lego brick level that Mark was talking about. But one of the enhancements that we introduced was a new way to trigger a business rule. So previously, if you knew that a work item was going to be overdue or is due on December 31st, and you wanted to check if it was overdue, you basically wrote a business rule that checked every day. Is it December 31st yet? Is it December 31st yet? Is it December 31st? Every day. With the on date business rule trigger, you can say, run this business rule on the date of December 31st. It massively simplifies the business rule logic and just optimizes the solution in general. So don't have a slide on those two, export and on date, but I wanted to mention them in case there are ones you hadn't caught your attention yet. So quickly, dynamic layouts. When the concept here is that when you have a tab, you now tie the tab to a layout. Previously, when you wanted to have different looks for different phases of the work item or for different roles participating in the process, you had multiple tabs and you would tie the visibility of the tab to whatever logic was driving which tab should be displayed. Now you can have a single tab and instead you're aligning your logic to the layout on the tab. So it makes it a little easier. Maintenance of your templates is cleaner. You don't have quite as many tabs across the top that you have to keep track of. And in fact, it's really easy to see for the summary which layouts are applicable to it. I will say that this is actually a foundation change that will come into play with some of the other capabilities that we want to introduce going forward. So dynamic layouts, kind of a new exciting way to control the UX. Multi-factor authentication, another security focused change. We had a lot of clients ask us to have inherent multi-factor authentication rather than having to use single sign-on. You now can specify that if your enterprise does not have single sign-on set to required, you can require multi-factor authentication. Any industry standard token generating app can be registered to use Shibumi. When the user comes in to log in, they'll be prompted for their MFA token. They'll go over to their token generating app, get the token, type it in, and be able to authenticate in. So it requires that dual factor authentication. We were very excited to introduce the mobile app. So if you haven't yet downloaded it and started to use it, by all means, take a look at it. It's really a great solution, very clean, all the same capability that you have on the desktop now able to go with you when you leave your desk. So really nice. And in fact, one of the add-on capabilities that makes it especially valuable is when you optimize the layout to be mobile friendly. So you can specify that a particular layout is only to be used on the mobile device and you have it real estate aware when you're doing that. I'll show you an example of that in a minute. But before we get to the demo, I wanted to mention the page level filter. So previously we had the ability to filter by hard-coded set of pick list values or by a single date. You know, is my due date January 15th? What we've introduced now is the ability to look for a due date that falls within a range of dates. We've provided the ability to look at a set of work items. So if you wanted to sort by region, you could have your region work items populated into your pick list. We've also provided the ability to sort by the data sets of your actual target forecast, best case, worst case, your data sets that you defined for your metrics. So some great capability there. And one last slide before we jump over to the demo. We will continue to evolve our table sections. And what we've done most recently for table sections is introduce the ability to edit a particular row by clicking on an edit icon. It opens up a dialog that has all the capabilities that we have with our form sections, meaning you can define the layout. By default, this dialog will have all of the columns that are in the table section, but you can remove some of those columns. You can add other columns. You can add other detail and organize it in a intuitive way on this dialog. The benefits of this, you can start to remove some of the columns in your table, keep that at a high level, and go into the dialogue to get that more granular, more detailed set of data. Keeps your interface really clean for your users, and it really makes it a nice interface. The board sections were just introduced this past weekend. Most common use case might be the Kanban board style in an agile type scenario where you're progressing it through an agile sprint, a work item through an agile sprint. But a board section can also be used as it's shown here to represent the health of a work item. You'll have the ability to put a summary of the work item, some footer details, an icon, all of that becomes a drag and drop. If I want to change the status of call meeting scheduler from on track to at risk, I would drag it over to the next column to see that. But why am I showing you slides when I can show it to you live? Let me jump over and show you an example solution of a few of these things. So first of all, just to give you some orientation to what you're looking at, some of you may be familiar with this. This is a pretty standard solution that we use when we're implementing engagements for our clients and partners. It is a way for us to organize the requests that happen through the course of the configuration exercise. So it's a request list. Let me move this Zoom bar out of the way. So if I am here and I want to create a new request, I can come in, click my create request button, type in the, please add this feature, demo request. And I'll say that this is an enhancement request. It's a medium priority submitted by Lewis. And I can create it. That then causes the request to get created, added to the bottom of our table. So really quickly, if you hadn't yet taken advantage of the create request buttons, it's a nice way to do it. You can really organize the content that you're prompting the user to enter on intake. Okay, so now that I've done that, let's take a look at this table section. I want to highlight a couple features on it that are available. And not even, they've actually been around for a little while, but not everyone's had the opportunity to see the table section. First of all, notice that I have pinned the leftmost columns. That's a pretty common request that we get, is the ability to pin the columns. Second of all, I can sort by clicking on the column headers, very kind of Excel-like in that fashion. In fact, sticking with kind of that Excel-like theme, I have the ability to filter out content by hitting the filter next to a column as well. So really nice capabilities there. With the rows, I can also open up the preview pane and I can edit content directly from the preview pane. But since I highlighted it on the slide, let's take a look at the ability to edit the single row by opening up the edit dialog. So actually, I'll make my priority a high priority. I'll hit save, and that switches me over to high. There it goes. Caught up. So just a couple things in that table section. We're going to continue to invest in the table section. There's a lot of great functionality that we want to introduce here. It's a really performant section. So when you have thousands of records, it's a really great way to represent them. You'll get pagination with them, etc. All right, so moving on from the table section, now let's take a look at these page level filters. You can see I've got a few things here. I've got the submitted date, and by default, it's using a shortcut of this month, last month. There's a number of different shortcut options you can introduce. If instead I want to switch to custom, actually, let me switch first. Last month shows you real quick, easy, really fast reaction to the filters. If instead I want to switch back to a custom date range, maybe I want the full quarter, I can come in and add that custom date range and I get my full set of records that fall within the date range. It's still filtered though, it's filtered by the request status. So here I've got my request status. I could actually select all of my options and see everything that's come in. I have the standard kind of normal pick list. The next page level filter is the next exciting one to show you. So in this case, I've got requests that have been assigned to a version release. If I wanted to go over to my releases tab, which is hidden from most users, it's the ability to add another version. So in this case, if I add demo version, This tab isn't exposed to everyone, but when we want to add a new version, an admin user can come in and add that. Now I could come in and if I, first of all, I'll show you that I have now the demo version available as a version that I could assign this piece of work to. But the exciting part is just by creating that instance, I now have the demo version option on my pick list and can start to show the things that are, it immediately updates the pick list without me having to make any configuration changes to it. Let's see. Okay, that was the notes on the pick list that I wanted, I'm sorry, the page level filters that I wanted to show you. Now I'm going to move on to the boards. So if we jump over, I have another tab here that says board status. When I click on that, I can see all of my requests and their current state. So here's the demo request that we just added. If I drag that over and want to put it on hold, it changes the status. It brings it right over on hold. So super easy to move these around and have them have the value that's represented by the column get assigned to the work item as you move it. Couple other things I can do. I can open up a preview pane. I can still edit the content here directly from the preview pane. And I can have footers. I can have additional information. What we're seeing here is that there's an awful lot of columns. Maybe I don't care about the closed, on hold, and canceled columns. Maybe I just want to see the work that's going from new request through ready for review. What I've done in this solution is I've taken advantage of the layout settings for the tabs. And if I go over to, again, my Shibumi admin, which an admin user can see, normal end users wouldn't, I could come in here and I could say, you know what, take the closed items off of my board. Simply by doing that, I've got the logic set up to now it's redefined the layout for the board status tab, given me a little more room to see the full detail, a little more room to see the footer information, if it's got a release, if it's got, whether it's an enhancement, an issue, a change request, etc. Still the same capability to just drag and move and change values. Okay, so those are all exciting changes. The last thing I want to talk about is that everything I've shown you is very horizontal. I've got this table section that has the pinned columns that are scrolling, and I've got a bunch of achievement cards, and I've got the boards that are going across in a very horizontal way. That's fantastic for the desktop, but it can be challenging to look at something in this layout in a mobile client. So what I've done, again, move my zoom bar a little bit. What I've done, I'm going to show you that as I flip over to the request list template. So now I'm on the template. When I configure the tabs, we define several of these tabs to be desktop only. So when you're setting up your tabs, you have the ability to specify whether they should be shown on desktop and mobile, desktop only, mobile only, or none. So I've defined all of those very horizontal tabs to be desktop only. And I've specified a tab that is a mobile only tab that is optimized for the real estate available in a mobile device. So now if I go back over to Project Horizon request list, if I drag my browser, size my browser down to the, let me see if I can get this centered here so you guys can see it better. If I size my browser down, it'll switch to the mobile client. I've got a layout that has just the two cards across the top. I still have all of the capability. I can still open up the edit dialogues. I can still edit that content. I could still sort by the page level filters, create a request, etc. But I've optimized the experience for the mobile client. Okay, so that was the demo portion. Let me get that back into our, let's see it live, and I'll transition now to what's coming up next. So what's coming up next, certainly again, there's a lot more than just the content shown in these two columns, but these are the key enhancements I wanted to highlight. I'll go through some slides talking through the items in Q2, but just to give you the quick rundown, dynamic achievement cards. So when I was showing you the page level filter demos, my achievement cards at the top were not reacting to the page level filters. There is a way to get them to do that. Now it's just a very heavy nested if statement that you have to put into the settings dialog for an achievement card. When we introduce dynamic achievement cards, it becomes a really simple configuration to have them react to the page level filters and take advantage of those options. When we will continue to evolve table sections, introduce conditional formatting and spreadsheets, will provide the ability to drill down into our achievement card values and into values aggregated on a table section, and we'll introduce visibility of field and required fields for forms. In Q3, we'll introduce the concept of app-to-app association. So within your enterprise, if you have multiple programs, today they're very siloed. And if you need to have any integration of content between the two, it's a true integration effort. It's a Shibumi to Shibumi integration, but it's an integration exercise. What we want to introduce in Q3 is the idea that I could have within my enterprise app-to-app associations, so that perhaps I can aggregate content or define milestone dependencies or define detail that's shared across my applications, so that and have it be curated and governed, so that I'm not allowing you to see every piece of data from my app, but here are some pieces of data that I'm willing to share with you. So app-to-app associations, drill down in charts. So we'll start drill down with the achievement cards in the table section, and we'll follow on with charts. The idea that I showed you clicking on a button to open up a dialog to create a new item. Wouldn't it be nice if I could click on that button or have something to click on that would let me select multiple things that I could create? And when I select the item I want to create, still get that really nice configurable context-aware form. So single click, multiple create. Data snapshots, the idea that I can get a point in time set of values. We're doing this a lot today. We end up creating child items underneath an initiative that says, this is my snapshot for January. This is my snapshot for June. Will allow you to have that without having to create the child items, and have the ability to then compare the values of your snapshots against your current values, perhaps. Template managed dashboards and presentations. This is where I mentioned that the layout capability is foundational, and it's going to be fed into some of the future enhancements. We'll take advantage of the layout capability with template managed dashboards and presentations. So if I wanted to manage the layout or the content on a dashboard from my template, I could change the layout, and all instances of that dashboard would react to the layout change. Doesn't prohibit you from still having your own unique dashboards that aren't tied to the template, but it would allow us to have that centralized management of the template, of the dashboards and presentations that should be centrally managed. Again, continuing to evolve our table section by adding additional capability, calculated columns. We might not store these values in our database, but when you set up your table section, the ability to add a calculated column that's doing some math with the other columns in the section. And lastly, we'll be introducing biometric authentication with mobile. Right now, it's a username password authentication, but we'll introduce the biometric capabilities that a lot of nice mobile apps have. So taking a quick look at that, this is the dynamic achievement card that will be introduced. Really simple ability to configure it, much easier than the custom section achievement cards that we have today. This becomes a native card. It's in Shibumi. You don't have to register the section to get to this one. You'll define the value. You'll define whether you're counting hours, counting the value, or doing some sort of aggregation of the value. When you set up the filters, this is where you can point to the page level items. The card has all the things that we're all comfortable and used to. The value with a prefix and suffix, subtitles, title for the card, icon, color-coded, etc. Conditional formatting. First, in the table sections, the idea that I could define what type of visualization I want. So it might be a progress bar, it might be a chip, it might be just the flat number, but defining that and then configuring color behind it. Having background color behind our metric values, and then all of this being applicable to forms as well. Being able to, on a form, decide whether I want to see the icon representation for a pick list, the name representation, both, deciding whether I want to have a different representation of progress. All of that will start to come in with conditional formatting. We also will be introducing the capability with our table section to flip to a spreadsheet perspective. It'll take up your whole real estate of your desktop, give you full width. You'll get by default all of the columns that were already in your table section, but then have the ability to add additional columns, change the grouping, change some sort orders, add calculated columns. Really think about how you might want to organize that set of data, and then have the ability to save it off as a view, a dashboard, a report, something that you can go back to and see with it already configured and set up how you had it previously. Should also mention that it's through this spreadsheet that we'll be introducing the bulk edit capability to our table sections. Drill down, I mentioned this is coming for achievement cards and table sections. So just to talk that through, it's so instinctive to want to click on this achievement card number and see how that number was derived. So now you'll be able to do that. We'll show you all of the items, the work items, and the values of those work items that made up the value showing in the achievement card. By default, any achievement card will have that capability. If when I got to the list showing me the derivation of that number, if any of these numbers had some aggregation to them, I could click on that to get further drilled down, and then keep going until I reach that root level number that doesn't have a derivation to it. So we'll have that capability. And in the initial release of drill down, that's what you'll get, is that really nice, very simple, no configuration necessary. It's just part of the product. A follow-on to that will be the ability to do what we're showing here, adding additional detail. So it's not just the list of items and the values, but maybe I want to see some additional columns. I want to see the description. I want to see the owner. I want to see the due date. I could include those in that drill down content to make it more intelligent, to provide more detail for you. So you'll be able to do this, as I mentioned, in the achievement cards, in your table sections. And then following on in Q3, we'll introduce the capability within our charts as well. So any one of these bars, any dot on the lines, any section of the donut charts, whatever charts we're exposing, you'd be able to click into to get to the next level down of information. A really common request we get is the ability to make fields required. So what I've shown here is that when you are in edit mode, we are identifying which fields are required. We might also, in this type of example here, when you set complexity rating to low, you don't need to fill out any other details about the complexity. And so all of the fields that were representing the complexity are now hidden. Their visibility has been toggled off. So that ability to react to different changes on the form itself, rather than waiting for a save and then reacting, is going to be introduced. You'll start to have that inner field relationships, inner field intelligence and impact. So if I select a value in one field, maybe it automatically calculates if I select the start date, it automatically calculates what the due date should be, for example. All of that will start to be introduced when we introduce this capability to define required fields and define visibility of fields. That takes me to the end of our session. Thank you all so much for participating today. We really love showing off where the product's going, and appreciate all the feedback we get from you all as we move forward.
Yeah, thank you all so much. We'll be distributing the recording once it's finished. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.